Into Personnel Committee for October 11, 2016. I am Alderman Stoyer. We have Alderman Moore. Alderman Slavic is here, and Alderman Duane is ill, as was stated. Need an adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That is approved. Approval of the minutes from the September 13th,
Move
2016.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next, number 4 is consideration with possible action on request to fill the following replacement positions and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers. And we'll take them one at a time, I guess. A, bridge tender. Let's do both. Bridge tender, public works, and B, engineering technician.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Consideration with possible action on 2018 health insurance contribution levels under the Health 1265 program. Points earned from November 1st, 2016 through October 31st, 2017 are applied effective January 1st, 2018. So, Lynn, do you want to start this? I have a number of questions, and I know that we have some other questions from the audience.
I do have in the packets a memo, and what we're recommending is that we carry over what we're planning on doing for 2017 to 2018 as well. And that is that people, or those employees that are eligible for the program and receive 1,265 plus points would see an insurance premium at 11.5%. Between 450 and 1264, it would be 12.5%, and those, they would earn those points if they complete their HRA and all of their associated exams, and so that would be consistent with what's under the current, or what was under the previous process for getting the 12.5%, and which is also what's in the police, fire, and transit contracts is the 12.5 and 15%. So that's our recommendation, but I did think it would be helpful for you to look at some statistics in terms of what's happening with the program. So out of those, out of the 830 employees that are on our health insurance. Now, we're not talking about retirees, because we do have additional people on our coverage, and we have employees that do not take coverage. So out of the 830, 481 are eligible for the Health 1265 program. Of that number, 392 have done some level of participation. And then I've broken out, now this was as of 9/28. Those that had received 1,265 points or more, there were 222 employees. Those between 635 and 1264.90. And so you can see what those numbers look like. 450 to 634.20, and then 20 to 49.60. And the number that didn't participate is 89. Now, I'll tell you this, that when I'm going to do some projections, I think most of the people between the 635 and 1264 are going to get to 1265, because when I looked at where they were at, some of them were at, 1,200, and there were things that were still coming in. So we're wrapping that up. So I think we're probably going to see over 300 people that get to that level. And then I thought it would be interesting to just see what happened last year. So last year, the employees, out of the same number, the number that took the HRAs, there were 367. So the number of employees last year that didn't take an HRA is 84. And then because we already have that data, we know that 30 spouses didn't, so they get a little different. An employee might, but a spouse might not. In some cases, both, neither do. And so actually the numbers of those not participating isn't that far different. So it was just kind of interesting. So then what I did was I also took a look at what the financial loss is for those that don't participate. And I think that in terms of doing the HRAs, that we do need to do some, to let people know what they're missing in terms of financial if they don't participate, or at least take the HRA. So if a family member does not take the HRA, not only do they lose monies that they could have gotten because they'll get a discount and the city will pay more for their coverage, they also lose potential PBA dollars, because they get dollars for doing the HRA, they get dollars for dental and vision. So someone who, so at 11.5%, that loss in an annual year for a family member is over $1,000, and at 12.5%, it's $844. For single, of course, it's less because theirs is less. So at the 11.5% rate, then it's a $456 loss, and at the 12.5%, it's a $383 on an annual basis. And then I thought, just if there was some interest, I broke out what the participation levels are. And those that say police, fire, and transit, it's only those that are in the bargaining unit that are not covered under this, because we do have some of our fire administration and our police, actually all the supervisors will be in the program going forward. So that's that sheet.
Shall we ask questions now? Because I know there's a lot more on this, and no, you were talking about the participation rate, Lynn, and it's about 81% right now of those employees. And you're saying with these others that are coming in that will probably be 85% possibly?
Well, I'm saying that I think that
No.
many more will achieve the 1,265 number.
I'm just looking at the numbers here, Tom, you're shaking your head. I had 392 over.
No, 81% participating, 19% not participating at all. What she was saying was, of that group on the fourth line that are currently less than
Right. They're gonna
1265,
be
she
coming
believes
up.
most of them will get to
No,
1265.
right.
So,
Okay.
so right now, there's 46% that have gotten to 1265.
That's what I have.
That'll come up to about 65% if most of those people.
Mhm.
So you have about 2/3 that'll make the 1265.
Well, and I've got a number of questions as we go through this, but I'd like to just, kind of go a little at a time on this. The end date on this, now granted, I noticed that you're saying that the program itself will, for next year, would be November 1st to October 31st,
Correct.
correct? Now, this year was different because.
This year, it goes till October 31st of 2016, but we started it in May. So it
Okay,
ran
so
from
I'm
May
just looking
through
at the time,
October.
I was looking at the time frame. I mean,
Right.
here you're looking at an entire year,
Correct.
but here you weren't.
Right, but our points are going to be adjusted accordingly too, because we put more into some of the points because we knew we had an abbreviated year, so people could accomplish those things.
Okay.
And many people did, accomplish those quickly, and some, so many, as you can see, a number of them have achieved the 1265. But we adjusted points because of the short year. So some things that we probably will give, we were gonna give, let's say, 50 points to, we might have given it 100 points this year. Or where next year, we're looking more because there's a 12-month period in which they can earn those points.
Well, I think there's a few things, and I've talked to you about this, and I've talked to some other folks, in the unions about this as well, and as some of the other alders as well. The first year of a program, the time frame is not going to be exactly the same as it was. I know things are being adjusted. You have the various what do they call them, kiosks or hubs?
Right.
There's different technologies that are being used, and I'm, there's bugs in those things. I've had complaints from people on some of the things that have worked on, and I'll go through a couple here, and I'd like to know where we're at with that, if we could. There's things, they were talking about Fitbits, employees with Fitbits compete only with other employees with Fitbits. Not sure whether the statistics include Garmin devices and Fitbits together. Is there any problems with that?
No, all those, you can use any
Any.
of your device that,
Okay.
there's applications, now some of them can't use the hub, but there are applications they can use on either their phones or their computer, so they can download that, and all of them are workable. The Fitbit is what we get a discounted rate from our vendor for, so that's why we put that out there, because it's really a very competitive rate, but you can have, what do you have?
A Fitbit.
Okay, yours is a Fitbit, but Garmin is the one that we have out there, yes. So Garmin is the one that we put out there, but you can use anything that they have the ability to interface with.
I guess one of the things too, we talked about the employees that sit at their desks as well. There's certain folks that are more active than others because of the positions that they have. How do you feel that, I'd like your list of options that will allow sedentary employees to reach 1265. Do you feel that we're at a good point with the different opportunities that are out there for anyone to attain this goal? I know that's kind of a big question, but I think that's some of the concern, because there are different types of jobs that are out there. And
Well, if somebody didn't do any of the monthly step goals, I'm just looking for next year, okay? If somebody didn't do any of those, they could get to 1,930 points if they did everything else. I mean, there's gonna have to be some trade-off. So if somebody didn't do any of the step goals, but were able to do all the other items, they could get to 1,930. So there's still room where they wouldn't have to do every single thing every single month. But if they get in, if they, so it depends upon, and the monthly step goals happen month to month. So there are some months that you might get the credit, and if you don't meet the goal, then you start all anew the next month, and then to see whether or not you get that goal. So there's a menu of options. So,
Did you, either one of you have any questions?
You're
on
the only
this?
one that got that letter, as far as I know. My name's not on it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
It just says
No,
you
there's
and
a-
Tom
No, well, these are some things that
had
Yeah, I
sent to you.
okay, well, I'd like to ask.
Go ahead and ask.
Yeah. It's
I
fine.
will, all right, then I'll continue on. I think one of the questions though too, and then one of the concerns, of course, were that the unions, the various bargaining units, didn't have, the communications between HR, the administration, and them, for opportunities to meet. I know this keeps coming back, but I just wanted to make sure that, the Personnel Committee did direct, HR to meet with the different groups, and I just want to make sure that, that has happened.
we went out and did a number of presentations to all groups of employees. In terms of the bargaining units, well, that's an interesting piece, because in terms of police and fire and transit, obviously we have to bargain it. The only other two associations that we have that are currently certified, well, I think there's actually three. I don't know that the one has quite gotten all their certifications, but is the DPW Labor Association and the Parks Association. And we do meet with them from time to time. In fact, I think we met with DPW and Parks about this. Yes, we did have a meeting with them in regards to this, but then we also had other meetings. We did present it to our benefit committee and our wellness committee. Both of them are made up of really employees that are representative of all the groups that, it used to be the labor management committee. So they're all representative of various groups, so
Okay.
we have met with them. And this year, in terms of putting the points together, or in looking at the program, we actually did put together a committee of employees that their purpose was to really help to assist in developing and putting the program together. We just recently ran it past, or provided it to, I think, the Wellness Committee and our Benefit Committee. So we're
Okay.
still in the process of looking at that, but we're getting close to our deadlines, and people are gonna wanna know, are we running the program next year and what's gonna happen, so.
Joel?
I would say the lack of communication must work both ways, because you and Alderman Tom Duane got that letter and the rest of the committee didn't, and I don't know about the rest of the council, but our HR director didn't even get that list of
I
questions.
just got this,
So-
so, all right, well, granted.
And it's frustrating to come in and not be prepared, I guess.
Well, these are more or less, yeah, okay, I'll leave that off here to the side. I'd like to open the floor if possible. Is there anybody that
I'll
would
make
like?
that motion to open the floor.
Okay, do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody that would care to speak to this?
Certainly.
All right.
You asked a question regarding sedentary individuals, and several months ago, I came here and identified that I consider myself to be the very definition of a sedentary job within City Hall.
Okay,
I'm already north of 2,000 points myself, so I can't see that there's any excuse for people not to get there if they desire to do so.
okay. Granted, we heard that, all right. Anybody else? Okay, that's all I have right now, too. so-
Motion to return to regular order.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Lynn, did you want to
I'm gonna
continue on?
just to
I
show
have a
you.
question before.
Yeah, go
we
ahead, huh?
As long as it's on this page. Lynn, you show that year-to-date, there's 89 people that are not participating. And then you pointed out that that's not much different from the non-participant level that we have with the HRAs. Have we done anything to try to understand why 1 out of 5 employees opt out of this thing entirely? Because that's the number that probably concerns me the most. That seems awfully high. That 20% of the employees don't avail themselves of a program that has considerable personal savings?
Because it's not only about money, it's also about their health. And I think that at one point anyway, there were a number of employees that were concerned that somehow the city was going to use this health information if they became aware of it against them. We do not get the information on individuals. We just simply get summary data. And sometimes they'll give me a breakdown by by departments so that we can do some comparisons. So we don't get that information. I think we're going to have to do some one-on-one reaching out to some of these individuals. We have, in the past, had a half-time health coach that did a lot of different things and wasn't really as focused on this as we'd like. And that part of what we've done this year is we've changed what we're doing. We actually have a full-time health coach. It's through Bellin, but they're really serving as a pass-through. And so we are going to have more time to dedicate to trying to get to these 89 people. Because I think that individual is going to have to just do some one-on-one discussions with them.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a good approach, and my sense here is what's being recommended is, for the time being, to keep the program pretty static in terms of its design, and focus on bringing in the groups that are currently not part of it.
Right.
What I would suggest is the other thing we do at the same time is work on that 20% and see if we can't get that number down.
Because I think actually, when I first mentioned to some of our committee members that the numbers that were not participating, they were surprised that they're that high.
Mhm.
And this is only dealing with the half of our employees, so we will be working on that.
Good, thank you.
And doing what we can, and that's part of the reason I talk about the financial loss is I think that we have to figure out something in our communications to make sure they're aware. If you start to add this up, you're really losing some potential, finances. So.
Yeah. I have nothing more.
And
Okay,
then,
thank you.
before I'm done with this, I want to tell you a story about taking HRAs and why they're so important, so we'll probably be using that as well. Then on the other chart, I did do a couple of charts here. One shows other considerations if we were to look at doing something different than what we did this year, although my recommendation is to stay where we are at, because we won't really have good data until probably the end of December when we know exactly where people fell. So I had to do some projections based on, what I'm thinking is going to happen. But if we leave everything the same, it's probably about a $50,000 cost over what we would pay if we didn't have the 11.5% in there. Now, on the back side, we don't know what kind of earnings we're going to have because we have people becoming more involved in their on our health care, because we have people becoming more involved in their health. And that trend will probably take 3 to 4 years before we'll start to see anything in that regard. Then B was just looking at what the original proposal was, because there was really trying to look at a different kind of a spread from 10 to 25% for those that didn't participate. So you say, what would you do to get people to participate? Well, I suppose that some look at this as being a penalty, but they would pay more in terms of a premium, and that's allowed under the Affordable Care Act. Then I just ran an alternate approach under C just to see what would happen, and that one was kind of interesting. I didn't expect it to come out to be saving. Now, again, we don't have our police and fire and transit in this yet, but in those savings will, I think, come down the road. And then I know that Brown County, I just did this so to see that not everybody is doing the same kinds of premiums that we are. I don't know that that's going to actually happen in Brown County, but they did include in their budget that everybody would pay a 70% premium. So I just ran that because we have a number of our members that serve on both bodies. So that was just flat. And then I think that it was Alderperson Moore said that he wanted to see what the numbers looked like. And so I just ran comparisons of what the 12.5 and the 15%, what the actual premiums would be under each of those scenarios. So what police and fire pay, and actually the first two are probably the most significant because this is what police and fire pay. A is what would happen if under our current approach at 11.5, 12.5, and 15. The top portion is what the employee premium is. First is monthly, and then is annual. And then I ran what the city's premium is, what the city's contribution levels are to each of those as well.
So am I reading right then that police, fire, and transit currently have a higher rate from the participants on
They don't have
the
it.
plan that we're currently running?
That's correct.
And then has there been more discussion about them coming on board with this program?
Well, There will be with fire because they're, and transit mechanics because their
Contracts are due.
contracts are opening up. And then just as a story that we're gonna, and we will use it as to why, and you may have seen this, it was in the Press Gazette yesterday, as to why people should take their health risk assessment. We have an employee's wife, and actually it's Lieutenant Mahoney. His wife did her HRA, and this goes back to 2014. If you turn it on to the other side, I highlighted the section, and she said, truth be told, she discovered that she had breast cancer. And she said, truth be told, I only had that first mammogram when I did because my husband's HRA said I had to. And of course, I waited until November, right before the cutoff, when they wouldn't give us a discounted insurance. That's the way we are. I'd hate to think what would have happened if I waited longer or ignored it altogether. She was discovered at a very early stage with breast cancer. She went in and had a double mastectomy. She is now, this happened in 2014. The day that she got the report, her and her daughter were going to a Monday night Packer game. And her husband Steve was taking her, and she wasn't going to say anything, and her daughter said, oh, how did the test come out? And she broke down crying. And today she's cancer-free. I asked Steve if it was okay if we shared this story, and he goes, yeah, because the HRA saved my wife's life. So those are the kinds of stories that I think are important for us to get out there.
Thank you, Lynn.
Can I ask a question real quick again about the police, fire, and transit?
Sure.
Are there incentives to their programs to drop those percentages?
Only with the HRA.
Only with
Nothing
the-
else, yeah.
Okay,
Yes, no,
okay.
Not at this point. So we will certainly be proposing those items.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
I move that we approve the recommendation of the Personnel Department to keep the design of the program for the next year as it is.
For 2017, I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Number 6, consideration with possible action on health and dental insurance plans to be effective January 1st, 2017.
I'm actually not making any recommendations at this point because we will, but I'm going to share some information with you because we will be looking at some additional models next week. But, and you just heard Dawn talk about the budget and our restraints. So we've been working with the mayor to put together some various plan designs to see what we can do regarding, first of all, health insurance. And health insurance is our biggest dollar spend. And so what we were looking at is, and the highlighted area is what is the mayor is planning to put into his budget, and that is a 1.4% increase in health insurance. But in terms of reading these models, and trust me, these are only a few of 100 that we've probably looked at. But the first one is if in next year, in 2017, if we were not to change anything and carry our plan forward as is, that we would be looking at a 9.74% increase. Now we have about $15 million. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got nothing. And so what, if you're on a $15 million budget, that's basically whatever the 10% comes to. So then the second version is now we start playing with different things. And one of the things that we're looking at is changing the co-insurance. Right now we have a 90-10 co-insurance that the plan pays 90%, but employees have to pay 10% up to a maximum. So B looks at what if we just changed it by 5%. Now the market for the most part, and it does vary because it probably, I'm sure there's 60s and 70s, but 80% seems to be more similar to the market. So we looked at what happens if we drop that co-insurance to 85% and then did something different with our pharmaceuticals. What we want to do is try and drive people to generics because for the generic drugs, it's a $5 copay. If it is a specialty drug, it's $25, and if it's a more specialty drug, what is the top tier, the third tier?
Preferred and non-preferred.
Preferred and non-preferred. Then non-preferred would be at $45. So that's what we have today. So we were looking at what happens if we did a $5, a 20%, and a 25% copay to a maximum out-of-pocket of $1,500 that would be separate from the other maximum out-of-pocket. And so that was one look that we did, and that one, the cost would be about 5.9%. The highlighted area is, what we've done there is looked at increasing the deductible by $750 for single and $1,500 for family. The co-insurance at 85%, 85 paid by the plan, 15% paid by the employee, the family. And then the other change there was to look at if we went with the $5, 20% and 25% with an out-of-pocket max for pharmaceuticals, and the cost on that one is a 1.4%. Now, we did a bunch of other variations, but really this is what we're looking at. Yesterday I met with, we have a benefit committee that we work with that goes through all the information. They're aware of what's been happening on a month-to-month basis. And yesterday we met with them to go over this, and they actually asked, looking at how could we stay at the 1.4%, looking at some different kinds of modeling. So we're actually going back right now and doing some modeling based on some of that discussion. We'll probably be looking at that again next week to see if there's something that we think might be, it's always interesting to see what can happen. And suppose if we went to an 80-20, maybe we could get away from doing that with the prescriptions. Although I saw it today and it came in at about 2, but we are going to look at some copay changes and see if we can work that down, and then we'll look at those options with the benefit committee and see what, where we come from, where that comes from. But that's where we're at right now. Right now, you're going to see about 1.4%. And what is that in general fund? About 130?
Well, actually, the 1.4 came out to like 180
But that's everything, right?
in the general fund. That's just the general fund. That's a change from, that would also include if we had new hires in there too.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
so that kind of
skews
curves
it a
it.
little bit.
It curves it, so it's a little bit less based on that, but the new hires it's a full addition. So that's where we're at with the health insurance. I'll probably bring that back at the next meeting. It is a budget item, however, if everybody were comfortable, and if, I don't know what the budget's gonna look like, if it was approved in advance, we could get our information out on the 1st of November, but we are prepared that we may have to wait till after November 7th. And I certainly understand that, but this just gives you some idea of what we're looking at in that regard. And then the other one is dental. Now, we offer 2 dental plans. One is Dental Associates, and the other is a plan that allows people to go to other dentists that are in the network, and almost everybody is, under Humana. Dental Associates has not changed their premium or their plan design in probably the last 6 or 7 years. So we have not received anything from them, so I'm not anticipating an increase this year. But the Humana Dental is also self-insured. I keep calling it Delta, but Dental Associates is not self-insured. So what we looked at in Humana, and again, we're looking at recommending some plan changes, is that we are looking at the major services. Currently, they're offered at an 80% increase. If we didn't make any changes, we'd see a 7.5%. The first line is no change current year. If we push that over to next year, it'd be a 7.5% increase. So then we started looking at some different kinds of modeling. And where we ended up is with the highlighted area, is that if the major services were all provided at a 50% level, which as I understand it is probably a little bit more in tune or consistent with the market. So if those were all provided at 50%, then, and we also currently, if you go in and have preventative dental work done, or preventative dental, then we also apply the deductible. We're going to remove that. That's not typical. So actually, it will have a benefit to everybody, because if they go in to have their preventative, they'll no longer have to pay a deductible for that. And so with that, we would modify the major services to 50%, and actually, this sees a savings of 4.18%. That's about $30,000, so there's the difference in our numbers. It's not like if we were saving 4% on health would be significant, you know what I mean? Significant.
Very different.
Yeah, very different, so that's what we're looking at. We ran this past the benefit committee yesterday. They didn't really make any comments that seem to look at other changes here, so we're not modeling anything different unless anything comes up in the next week, then we'll bring that forth too. We'll bring that back to you.
Right. Does the committee feel comfortable?
Move to receive and place on file.
Okay,
Second that?
all right. Any other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, all right. Thank you, Lynn. Next, we have consideration with possible action on report of routine personnel actions for regular employees.
Just regular, it's just our
Move to
routine.
receive and place on file, but I do have one question.
Okay,
The final entry has got a category called other. What does other mean? Why is that entry on the report?
It's because it's longevity step. They're 12th year, so they got an increase. I don't know why they don't have a special longevity, because it's not promotion, it's a step, it's a longevity step.
Longevity. Thank you.
Yes. But I see the 12th year there.
okay. Anything else? Joe, anything?
No.
Okay. No motion.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Okay.
Second.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to adjourn?
Sure.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ask me a question. Thanks.